What happens when international laws are violated? Let's explore a recent instance where Saudi Arabia warned Israel of serious repercussions. In a world where political tensions are at an all-time high, such warnings carry significant weight. To understand the gravity of this situation, we need to delve into the specifics. Saudi Arabia has recently issued a stern warning to Israel. The crux of the matter: ground operations against Hamas, a Palestinian political organization. Saudi Arabia is of the view that these operations are not only unjustified, but also a stark violation of international law. The kingdom, a major player in the Middle East, has been closely observing the escalating conflict between Israel and Hamas. The ground operations in question have raised alarm bells, prompting Saudi Arabia to caution Israel about the serious repercussions of its actions. While the intricacies of global politics can often be complex and convoluted, the fundamental principle remains. Respect for international law is paramount. In this case, Saudi Arabia is asserting that Israel's ground operations against Hamas are crossing this line. The situation is tense, and the stakes are high. This warning from Saudi Arabia could potentially escalate the situation further. As we navigate through this geopolitical maze, it's important to remember that every action has potential consequences, and international law serves as a guide to maintain order and peace. So, what makes these ground operations unjustified in the eyes of Saudi Arabia? And what are the potential serious repercussions Israel might face? To understand this, let's delve into the specifics. Israel's ground operations against Hamas are seen by some, including Saudi Arabia, as a disproportionate response to the threat posed by the militant group. These operations often result in civilian casualties, leading to accusations of human rights violations. Now, onto the serious repercussions. Should Saudi Arabia decide to take action, it could start by severing diplomatic ties or imposing economic sanctions on Israel. But the impacts are not confined to these two nations alone. Other countries in the region and beyond may feel compelled to take sides, potentially escalating tensions in the already volatile Middle East. Furthermore, these operations could lead to a surge in support for Hamas, thereby intensifying the conflict rather than quelling it. The international community's perception of Israel could also be affected, possibly resulting in diplomatic isolation. Lastly, the operations could disrupt peace efforts in the region. Any progress made towards resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could be undone, making the path to peace even more challenging. The implications are far-reaching and could potentially alter the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. International law is complex, and violations are often met with severe consequences. But what exactly does it say about situations like these? Well, let's dive in. International law, particularly the law of armed conflict, strictly regulates the use of force among nations. It requires that force must be necessary, proportionate, and discriminate. This means it should avoid civilian casualties and destruction beyond what is needed to achieve a military objective. Saudi Arabia argues that Israel's ground operations against Hamas do not meet these criteria and are therefore unjustified. Furthermore, international law protects the sovereignty of nations, prohibiting one country from interfering in the internal affairs of another. The Saudi government is claiming that Israel's actions against Hamas, a political party and military organization based in Gaza, infringe upon Palestinian sovereignty. Lastly, the United Nations Charter calls for the peaceful resolution of disputes and the prevention of acts of aggression. Saudi Arabia asserts that Israel's ground operations amount to such acts, thus violating this principal norm of international law. As the world watches, the question remains: what will be the outcome of this tense situation, and how will it shape future relations in the Middle East?